Today I'm going to show you how to create some beautiful greeting cards from these beautiful twist tool stamp backgrounds. In my last video we worked with the twist tools, various twist tools and blank palette stamps to create these beautiful backgrounds. We also used dye-based inks and pigment inks and a combination of the same inks. So when I start to make the greeting cards, I start out by just trimming away the excess paper from my image. I've started doing this already, and I've got a pair of decal edge scissors. Just push that out of the way a little bit, and I'm just going to trim this off, and I'll have it for use in a few minutes. I have these small blank palettes, and I'm going to just trim them out as well. I usually cut them off of the larger sheet if I've worked on a larger sheet, and I work two different ways. I will come in very close to the image and just cut a straight line, trying to keep this even on all borders. Okay. And one more cut here. Okay, so that's how I cut some of the larger images and some of the small ones out. I'll come back to this one, and I'm going to cut right up to the edge. I'm not going to leave any white border. And this is the way I treat some of the images. No border. Okay, then let me do one more for you, and I will just simply cut this down to make these a little smaller, easier to work with when I trim it out like that. I'm going to come back in with my decal edge scissors. I'm going to leave that little decal edged border here. When I start showing you some of the cards I've created, when I start creating cards, you'll see why I wanted to leave different borders and why I wanted to leave a no border on some of the images. So let me just set these aside for a moment. I'm going to move this tray, and I'm going to bring in a work tray that I have. Oh, this work tray. It's heavy and it's full of all kinds of things. And I'm just going to go through a little bit and tell you about some of the things in the work tray. Some of these things that I might like to use when I'm creating cards. So I've got some little packages here that have some flowers in them. They're just little silk flowers that I have taken apart, and I will incorporate these with some of these backgrounds. You'll be surprised at how beautiful they turn out. Let me set these aside. I've got some of the double stick foam tape. I like to use this sometimes. This one is fairly thick. Some of it I like a little thinner, but this is what I'm using today. Also, my E6000 glue, I like to keep it handy. I've got a couple of glue sticks here that I might use during the process. I have got actually some no-hole beads, and I will use those for a card, or at least show you a card I've done with those. Paper punches, oh yes. This is a wonderful punch, this great big punch, and when I'm working with this one, the two larger palettes that we created backgrounds from will just slide right into this piece here. Let me grab a little background and show you what I'm talking about. I can just slide it in, and all I want to do is make sure that I've got an equal distance on either side, and then I can punch this out, and I'm going to end up with a nice hole in the middle that I'll be able to use for an image. So this is one of the hole in the middle pieces that I've done. I'll use it in a little bit. Let me set this one aside. I've got another punch. You could use any punches you'd like to work with. This one has a leaf image. I might like using that one. I've got a corner punch, and I've used this, and I've got a beautiful example using this. This is one of the punches where you just have your paper, you insert your paper corner in and you punch. And when I'm working with something larger, the larger two palettes, I can very easily go around all four corners if I like and just punch that out and get a nice design. I have got some specialty paper. I've got an accent piece I could use. I've got some ink. I've got some wire. I've got a little charm. I've got a bead. Oh, I've got all kinds of goodies. As I start working on my pieces, I just look and think, oh, this is going to work out great for a card. I also have some images that I've stamped out previously. So these are some of the images, and I've cut them out. I've already trimmed them, but you can see how pretty they are. This maple leaf was done with one of my tool stamps, and then I did a special effect over the top of it. I don't know if you can see how glittery that is. To find out more about working with the tool stamps, you can go to my tool stamp video, and it will take you through the 5 categories of tool stamps, and you will see how you would be able to work with it on a leaf like this. There's a little larger version of a leaf that you could work with. You can work on anything with my tool stamps. So you could work on a heart, you could work on a sentiment, all sorts of things. I also, on my tray, have some of this double stick red line, and I might like to use this in conjunction with those no-hole beads. Sometimes I shop and find some cute accent sticker pieces. A lot of times they're dimensionals, and so I might choose to use this on a piece. So I have all of these different things going on. Sentiments that I can cut out of a sheet here and perhaps use. Let me just go through here a little bit more. Oh, I was looking. I have some sentiments that I've actually, yeah, here's one, stamped out and have ready to pop onto something. So I have all of these little treasures here. Beads, another heart. How about some stars? Oh, I've just got tons of different things. And then, of course, I've got the little palette images, lots of them. In the last video, I promised to show you how to work with these little palettes. I think you'll enjoy what I've got to show you with these. So I moved my supply tray aside, and we never got to the bottom of it, but I did have a bunch of papers there. And I do like working with some of the colored cardstocks when I'm putting my cards together. So that's what I've got, and I'm just going to set them off to the side. This was one of the images. I thought it was just beautiful. Sometimes the images speak to me. Hopefully they'll speak to you. But this one was so pretty that I didn't feel that I wanted to enhance it in any other way. Just wanted to find a nice piece of cardstock for it and center it up here. And I think it makes a beautiful card, garden of flowers. I set this aside. Then I got my big hole punch out, and I just punched a piece here. I've got the circle that I might use later for something. And let me set this punch aside. So this is what I've got now, and I've got a nice space to add something to it. Like I said, sometimes the cards speak to me and I want to do something that's fun. I've got a little image here, and I'm going to pop that in, and I will use the E6000 glue when I go to put this on, because I need something that's got some good strength. So this is a card I will be putting together. This is another of the palettes that spoke to me, and I just put the flowers on it. I take apart some of the flowers and just layer up, and then jewels, and I do have a little container of jewels, yes, buried on my supply tray. I'm going to put this on, and when I look at this piece, I feel it's so serene, such a beautiful card, that sometimes you need a card for someone that's grieving, and this just has a peace about it. So I'm going to actually use some of my E6000. A lot of times I do that instead of working with a double-sided tape or a tape dispenser. Put a little here. Okay, and I'm just going to assemble this card, eyeball it up. Hopefully I've got it all nice and even. I just really like what this looks like. By the way, this stamping was done on the glossy paper, so it was actually a second stamping. This is interesting. I did a little watercolor piece that I really liked, and I thought I'd like to incorporate it in a card. And this was one of the blank palettes. It was a first stamping, and I'm going to put a little of the E6000 on this one. And I'm going to shift this over to the side when I put it down, and a little E6000 over here. And I see my E6000 is really flowing, so I am quickly going to put the lid on it, set it aside. And I'm working upside down, so I hope I'm doing a good job. And I'm just going to pop this down. What I liked about this combination was that when I look over here at the grass, this gives me a little bit of a feeling of it. I just thought that was kind of a fun piece to put together. I've got a few other pieces that I want to bring out. And I can see that this is going to come loose a little bit. I'm just going to stick this under the mat that I'm working on so it will settle down and be nice and smooth and flat. A couple of cards that I've put together earlier. This is one of the longer palettes. Actually, it is as long as this one is, but I trimmed off a piece here, and then I used it right here, but before I put it down, I wrapped with a pretty cord and some beads, and then based on this piece. And I came back in and used one of my rubber stamps and stamped a happy birthday on this card. This was interesting, I thought. This card, this is a small piece, and I just trimmed it to size so that it would fit in this larger palette, then based it on a color that I liked. I guess I'm working this way with it. But this design was done using the twist tool on the floral stamp, and it gives it a very unique and very pretty look. Now this I thought was really nice the way it came together. I just chose some of the palettes that we had worked on, a larger palette, the medium size, and the small, and I layered them together. And I didn't want to stack 1, 2, 3 on top of each other and make it very symmetrical. I wanted to give it more interest, so I laid it out like this, got everything glued down, and then I had a little sentiment here, and it's imagination. This was fun. I had stamped out the tulip, colored it in with some colored pencils, then I basted on another piece to give it a little more life, and then based everything on one of the larger twist tool backgrounds. I thought that was a stunning card. Here's another interesting blank palette image, and what I did was I took and I stamped the butterflies over it with a pigment ink, and then I came back in and used a clear based embossing powder, but the powder had a little bit of sparkle to it, so I don't know if you can see this. Now I promised to show you how to work with these small palettes to do something interesting. And I think this is really a lot of fun. I've got a piece of peel and stick paper here, and I usually put the S on the back so I don't get mixed up with these papers. And when I look at the one side that I've pulled off, this is a shiny side. I like to hang on to some of that, not the opposite side. So I'm getting a big piece taken off here. Okay. And I can use this as the release paper. I'll just put it here. Now I've got something to hold on to a little bit. Otherwise, so sticky, it just will stick to me, and that's not any fun. So I'm going to just start taking some of these pieces and layering them on. Okay, I've got a piece here. I like to come over a bit for that next piece. Okay, let me look at what I've got here. I like mixing my colors in a little bit, using something different next to the other. And remember when I was cutting with the scissors and I showed you how some of them I don't leave any border on? This would be an instance where I don't leave a border. I like being able to get right up to the edge on everything. No, that's not the one I want. I think I'll put this one in next. Okay, so I'm right up to the border there, and I've got another piece that I want to put in. Okay, I'm going to put this one, whoops, get that in. I will admit that sometimes it's easier to do this using a glue stick, but I wanted to expedite a little bit, and I actually usually do just use the sticky paper. Okay, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to trim some pieces off here. Just looking at my back guideline, I don't know that that shows up on camera real well, but I'm just trimming the excess off, and I'll come over here and trim that excess off. And now I've got some little spots here, and the reason I trimmed at this point is because I want to reintroduce some of these pieces that I was working with, bring some of this back into my colorway. And I have to see if there's enough room here. Yes, I can get that one in. And here's another little one that I want to get in. Okay, and one more piece. Let's see what I've got. Here's this little piece here. Okay, I'm going to trim this off. And hopefully what you're going to see here is a little patchwork piece. And I'll bring out a couple of other patchwork samples a little bit later on. You could add something else to this piece, or you could just simply take it and base it on a piece of your cardstock. I think for quilters this would be a lot of fun. I do design a series of clay molds, and that is what this leaf was designed using. And then I added some glitter to this piece. I think it's really pretty, and it would be very nice as a card as well. And this was a fun piece to do. I mentioned that sometimes I get little stickers. This is another image that I cut the circle out of, and then I put a little sticker in here. And I could add a happy birthday to this or whatever type of a sentiment I'd like to add. But that was a fun piece to work with as well. And this piece also was done on the glossy stock. I think this piece is very pretty. I mentioned having the corner punch, and I took my corner punch out and I punched each of the corners of the palette, and then I made up this little flower for the center. I took everything here and basted it on a piece of silver paper, and so you can see where I've done the punching where the silver shows, and then the accent bead has a little silver in it, and I think that really turned out pretty. This piece was a lot of fun to do. It's got several different elements in it. The middle flower is one that I had stamped out and cut out. I had used one of my press tools to create the pattern in this flower, and then I added it to a piece, background piece, and I kept everything soft and subtle. I wanted a little more oomph to it, so I added another little ring here. That was a piece that came from one of the silk flowers, and then a large jewel, and then jewels going around the side, and then baste it. And then I could add this to another card if I wanted to, and actually I could cut it off and use it as a square card rather than a rectangular card. I find this to be a lot of fun. This is obviously you can see it's kind of a monochromatic blank palette, and it would be a pretty card if I took it and put it on here. It would be fun, but I found something else that I wanted to do with it. What I decided to do was to fold it in half, and so now I designed a piece like this. And the little hearts here are pieces that I had done using other tool stamps. I will do another video that shows you how to use some more of the tool stamps. The possibilities are infinite, endless, whatever you can say about that. It just goes on, and it is a lot of fun. I took one of the palettes, and it doesn't make any difference on this one if I would leave a border, or if I would leave a deckled border, or if I would cut close. This one I cut close, and I just take a piece of paper, put this on, I'm folding it over and making a little note card. But by the same token, I could take this piece and fold it over and actually put it on an envelope. And here, why don't I do that for you? You know how it is exciting sometimes when you get your mail, and it's always great if you get a decorated envelope. You know, something just a little bit special. Or if you wanted to decorate, and then the card that you have inside comes back with this. But very easily here. On the flip side, sure, there's a little room for your stamp here and your message to who it's to, and it's just fun. I'd probably write my return address off on an angle here, make it a little more interesting. And I've got a card that, to me, brings out some mystery. I'm using a handmade piece of paper, and I'm opening the card in this direction rather than this direction. And there's little fibers in the handmade paper here. And I selected this piece, and I'm going to actually glue this one down. So I get my 6,000 going here. There's so many different glues you could use, but this works for me, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, and I'm just going to center this up a little bit, put it in, and then I'm adding the cat to it. And I think it's really a fun piece. This cat was done using one of my tool stamps. I've embellished him with some beautiful eyes, and I am going to just glue this down. Okay, I've got it all glued down. Wow! I've had a fun time showing you what you can do with my twist tool backgrounds. Thanks for joining me.